This is the continuation of your news and current affairs program reaching you live from our Lagos Network studio on the ITV network. I am Joshua Okata. As they say, if you can quit for a day, definitely you can quit for a lifetime. And to have that happen, definitely the will to take action and the discipline required to maintain that particular course will be very much paramount. That being said, we'll be looking at drug abuse among children and youth in Nigeria. And this is coming against the backdrop of a call by the NDLEA chairman in the person of Brigadier General Buba Marwa, retired, who urged parents to acquire test kits to be able to diagnose and, of course, detect drug abuse very early a time in the life of their children before it gets, out of hand. And of course, where help is needed will be provided. To have this conversation this morning with me, I'm being joined by two gentlemen. First, on my immediate right, I have Mr. David Olushola Adesong. He is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Also, on my immediate left, I have Mr. Ubong Thompson. Of course, he's a public affairs analyst. Good morning, Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, Mr. Joe. Thank you, Nigerians.
All right, now let's get the ball rolling. And let me start with you, Mr. David. The prevalence of drug abuse is capped between the rate of 20 to 40%. And of course, the abuse itself is at 20.9%. A situation that has called on or elicited the call by the NDLA chairman, Buba Marwa, to advise parents on the need to take precautionary measures against such ugly trend. In his words, he said that such destroys ambition, extinguishes hope, and rob young people of the bright future that rightfully belongs to them. My question now to you is this: if this statement by Buba Marwa is actually true or anything to go by, how timely is this given the prevalence rate?
Excuse me. Yes, indeed, it's a very timely assertion from the Director General of NDLEA himself, General Buba Marwa, retired. And why this is prevalent, especially at this period, is the fact that we all know that, and we agree that the youth is the future of a nation. And if care is not taken at the route at which our youth are going, destruction is just set ahead. And I would have thought that a government like the kind that we have in Nigeria now, it is essential. If we are building infrastructure, we are preparing the future, we are building roads, we are building infrastructure for tomorrow, then it means we are preparing for those youth that we are talking about now. So it is essential that we actually have a kind of a whole gamut of preparation and getting ready for them by ensuring that the abuse of drug is curtailed to the barest minimum. And I think that is the germane of that statement from General Buba Marwa.
All right, now let me come to you, Mr. Ubong. He also called on the need for all stakeholders, to look into this. I mean, the authority, parents, guardians, teachers, to look into this. Now, my question to you is this: before we look at those issues about the responsibility, now, what do you think about this ugly trend of drug abuse, an ill wind, you would say, that is adversely blowing on children and youth today?
Thank you, Mr. George. I want to say that the advent of drug abuse in Nigeria predates even before the independence Nigeria. And though locally we used to have our grandparents' use of kola nuts and probably cannabis, but they were mainly used for medicinal purposes. But you see, the trend continues, as Nigeria keep growing, and especially during the oil boom era, you see a lot of people getting wealthy and leading to increase in drug abuse and use of substances. And that trend has keep on continuing, and you find This is among the middle belt and the western region of Nigeria mostly, and it has spread to all regions of Nigeria as we speak, and it has become a menace to the society, leading to children imitating because they must have learned it from parents. So the retired general advocating for parents to buy testing kits, and to test, the use of drugs at home is not far-fetched from what probably he has seen in the society going on. You see a lot of drugs being abused today by within the age of 12 years and above, and it's a serious trend that that needs serious government attention, and not only the government alone, the families, the society has to rise to the occasion to see how this can be curtailed. So when you talk about the effect.
Yeah, before we go into that, let me throw my next question to Mr. David. In your earlier submission, you talked about beyond the mundane things that government should be seen doing, say build roads, build other infrastructure, electricity and all of that. He said something about drug abuse needs to be urgently looked into by various stakeholders. I'm talking about those in authority. A former governor of a particular state recently stated that while he was in office, he was providing facilities like psychiatric homes where people with mental issues can go for rehab. And people were saying or laughing at him that he was encouraging people with mental issues, or so to speak, encouraging the trend of people who are mad. What's your take on that?
Well, I think those who made that assertion, they got it wrong. Because, like we said, if we have children and youth in our society who are deep involved in drug use, of course, it is the responsibility of the society to bring them back to reality and take care of them. And indeed, if you ask me, I think we don't even have enough facilities where we can take care of these people. I know that a few religious bodies and individuals have set up homes and places where they can take care of them and review their cases and put them back onto the right path. However, there should be a lot more, and such government should be encouraged rather than condemned.
All right, so now let me get back to you on the issue of early detection. The chairman of NDLEA cited at an event called the POI 2025 held recently that there are some early warning signs that parents most likely ignore. What are those signs?
I think some of the signs is that, in families, if parents birth a child, you should know your child, you should know your children, you should know the way they behave. So by the time you begin to see that a particular child is becoming recluse, is becoming secluded, is becoming unfriendly, or now a child that used to be very friendly, used to be gregarious, suddenly go into his own cocoon, then you begin to suspect that a good parent should begin to survey what is wrong with this child. And a good parent should actually monitor the children, go into their room when they are not there, search the different parts of the room, see whether they are, and they'll also take time to know their friends, get to know the children deeper. So this will help them to be able to curb this thing. When the child changes, you'll be able to nip it in the bud and say, no, that is the wrong direction.
All right, now let me come back to you, Mr. Thompson. Marwa also urged parents and guardians to acquire test kits, to be able to detect, these things very early and also nip it in the bud. You are a parent, of course. Imagine you coming back home with a test kit, for instance. What is likely to be the reaction of your wards?
Yeah, the test kit should not only be, penciled down for the use of only for the kids or for the youth or for the children alone, because before the children started, to make use of all these drugs, there are some parents that show example, so the test kit should also be applicable to the parent. But who's going to test this on the parents? This become a problem. So the parents, as we speak, has to show good example in the first place by staying away from drugs and abuse of drugs, and then creating that awareness earlier enough for the children to know that drugs kills. Not even does it affect someone, but it kills psychologically, mentally, and health-wise. It's a very devastating, substance, that can render someone, completely, redundant in life in every area, both academically and otherwise. So the parents should be able to, build in the psychology, the emotions, and the atmosphere at home to see that the children stay away from drugs. And even when these test kids are brought home, it should be for collective use. And the parents should watch the back of their children. The children should also, have the responsibility to watch the back of their parents to see, daddy, you are behaving very funny today. What happened? Go for a test. You see, so by so doing, then the family as a whole can breed, drug-free environment for all.
All right. Now, let me come back to you, Mr. David. Talking about the issue of bringing all stakeholders on board, teachers, parents, guardians, and of course, authority, how significant is this?
Yes, indeed, it's very important, and is the essence of actually the result that we desire in this kind of thing. And why it is significant is that, in the life of a child as they grow up, is either going to be at one of those places along the line. It's either is in school where the teacher monitors him and help him to live a life that is accepted to the society. When he leaves the school, he's likely going to go back home. So at this point, the parents will take over and be able to nurture and monitor him. So to have all these stakeholders, major stakeholders, being ready and available to play this role at a particular time is very important. However, if a child that you are going to put in the custody of a teacher, you must be sure that that same teacher himself is not a drug abuser. It will not even be so that it won't be the teacher that will, at the end of the day, from the back door, introduce such youth to those drugs. So it's something that is delicate, and the society, through government, must be able to balance it up. I remember in those days, there used to be occasion when even teachers themselves undergo tests. Excuse me. They undergo tests whereby they check them, monitor them. So before you can now put our youth in their care, because the youth indeed are the future of a nation, and they are very important in that regard.
All right, now let me come to you, Mr. Thompson. What could be the likely cause of a youth indulging in drug abuse?
Well, I think before I go into that question, we must look at, the prevalence of drugs, even in the country as we speak. How has it become this, this situation that we find that so much youth are going into drug abuse or drug uses all over the country? Far back in the 90s to 2000, we discovered that Nigeria became the route, where drugs are being, trafficked, to Europe, America, Asia. And government has the responsibility to, cut all this cartel, cut down the cartel and prevent them from using Nigeria as, as a route to, traffic drugs to all this part of the country, because most of the drugs traffic end up staying back in the country, and you see before the children will end up, having access to them. So the government, and then you also find some of the influencers today or the role models, having to openly use drugs in the country, and this has also triggered the increased number of youths participating in this drugs usage. So it becomes a very serious problem for Nigeria today.
Now that reminds me, sorry, I'm going to butt in here real quick so I don't forget my train of thought. Talking about the influencers, some time ago, Nigerians reacted to the fact that a certain music artist who is known for abusing drug, even on music video, was used as, in quote, the brand ambassador of a drug agency in Nigeria. What's your take on that?
So we need the sincerity of our leaders and those in different, saddle with certain responsibilities to take, very, very drastic measure to curtail this, menace. Because if you, for instance, if bring in a drug addict to become an influencer in a particular agency against drugs, and then there is no sincerity of purpose in such, because you can only visually see what the influencer is doing, but back at the boardroom, you don't know what else, whether he still go back to using the drugs. But
this is not something he does behind the scene. He uses drug on his music videos.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
So you having him to be the face of a reputable government agency.
And the
my question is it an endorsement gone wrong?
That is why I'm talking about.
Or what
sincerity.
is the message they are trying to portray?
Sincerity. The endorsement or whatsoever is totally wrong. You cannot, bring down illegality with illegality. So we heard in Nigeria that is a repented Boko Haram. How repented is that Boko Haram, for instance? How repented is that drug user
or maybe,
that drug
as they
influencer?
say in our local parlance.
So it becomes
madness. They cure madness.
Yeah,
is it in that case you're bringing somebody who is known to be
it becomes a problem.
I think it's an aberration. It's an aberration.
Seriously.
That kind of character.
Seriously.
You know the problem and the danger sometimes our government commits is the fact that they forget that these children, they flock behind these people, and they see those people as a total.
They have a very large cult following.
They see them as a sort of total individual, so they want to copy everything about them. There was a time, if we are thinking about the same musician, there was a time some of them will put their trousers beneath their bum, and you find that some children, some school children were copying those nonsense as at that time, and until maybe some schools now became firm on such thing and begin to correct it. So really it's indeed a very bad and a mistake, a misplaced priority for government to bring up such character as the face of...
All right. Now, having addressed that, now let's look at the financial burden. This would be on parents and guardians. If they are to, imbibe that admonition given by Buba Marwa to acquire test kits. The average cost hovers around 17,000 to do a drug test. Now, to even go further to get a digital alcohol detector costs nothing less than 180,000. For a parent that is struggling to make ends meet, perhaps pegged around minimum wage, how can they be able to cope with this?
Sincerely, that suggestion from the general to me, he didn't thought it well before he said that.
Really?
In the sense that even though it is good to have all these kits available, but putting that burden on parents is wrong. How will he say, like we said, if you are building infrastructure for future, it means that you are preparing the ground for these children. If you are building for them for the future, you should also take care of those children you are preparing for the future, in the sense that such kits, I would have expected that. So I think there are three options that the government could have used: either to provide it to schools, and provide medical expert nurses and laboratory technicians to help the school in administering these things on the student, or maybe big pharmacies in neighborhoods. Big pharmacies in neighborhoods, government can provide it there, and as children after school are to go in there, take the test
for free.
Yes, government should be able to, if you can build roads of billions of dollars, government should be able to provide those facilities.
How about our
free.
health centers? Our primary health centers
Yes, why
in our locality. Can't that be used as,
of course,
a channel to be able to get these things across to the people?
Of course, those are the best ways to do it. Well, I'm not saying that in case some neighborhood, the FMCs, Federal Medical Center, general hospitals are far away from some location. But if government really want to get results, There are pharmacies that are reputable in different areas. Beyond having them in the hospitals, they could have a few in certain pharmacies that are reputable and within the geographical locale of those children, so that easily they can walk in. If you tell a child to go to the hospital and go and do the test, he probably will just branch off at a football field, play ball for some 2-3 hours and go back and say he has done the test. So it's something that the government should take much more serious and not put the burden of getting those equipment on the parent. It's not good enough.
All right, now let me come back to you, Mr. Thompson. Beyond providing these test kits, as he said, to reputable pharmacies, clinics in communities, what can government do to curtail the free access that teenagers have towards cannabis and all other drugs that is accessible on the streets in major areas that are reputable to be where they organize themselves to take these things? Some ghetto areas, in some areas that can be curtailed. What can government do in that, extreme?
Well, the government has the right to create awareness on the effect of, because prevention is far more better than cure. First of all, I'm looking at preventive measure. In the first place, that government has to prevent these drugs from going about, and I know NDLA has been doing that. You find them on the road searching motorists and stopping individuals to search, to discover and seize some of these, substances. So they should increase that awareness to primary school. And I know some curriculum also carry, thought about, bad side effect of drug abuse. So that should be amplified. The creation of awareness, and then parents should also help the government, just like my brother said, to also monitor their words. Watch initially while we were growing up far back then in the village in Nigeria, a child was a product of the society. It was not left alone in the hands of the parents. You see, Mama Nkechi watching the back of a child belonging to Yabeji, such that if they go wrong in any of their activities or action or show attitude, they will be spanked and corrected with love. I think the increased participation and government should pay more attention to the wealth and health condition of our children and build a lasting, future for these children, such that they can stay away from drugs. Then, a lot of issues give rise to this increase in drugs these days.
All right. Now, we are pressed for time. I just need, you both to be able to address these two questions quickly. Talking about the signs, you mentioned one of them. How about the issue of bloodshot eyes, pupils larger or smaller as usual, and the unusual body odor or breath, as the case may be? Could that be something parents can also look into when it comes to their wards?
Yes, indeed. Those are some of the things that can easily give away the child when it's indulging in these things. And like we said, if a parent is supposed to be the closest person to a child, so they know the child from the point of birth till that age. Like you said, any moment there's a slight change in any of his physical characteristics, bodily, odor whatsoever, they should be able to pick the signal, because those are signals very important. So it is expected that parents will live up to their own expectation and watch out for signs and signals that will be able to tell when a child is going astray, so that we can now. Sorry, let me quickly add this. Just this morning as I was driving toward this studio, I heard on the news that someone took a drug and was going to greet a family member in a prison yard here in Lagos, and was going to ferry drug into the place, but the eagle eye of the prison official were able to nab him, and they were able to hand him over to NDLA. So what we are saying is that even our security personnel individual need to stand up to this menace that is gradually destroying the nation.
Thank you so much. Now, your thoughts finally, just less than 1 minute.
Yeah, there are so many other indications, you know, because eye detection, and then you also find even the law enforcement agency, they will got to look at your nail, I mean your finger. You know, there are a lot of, you know, detective approaches, measures that can be used to detect psychologically, physically, mentally, and otherwise. And this, I want to call on all stakeholders, beginning from the Nigerian government, the law enforcement, the parents, the community, you know, to amplify and purposefully, you know, protect the children that we have today on the street.
All right,
We
thank
should
you
watch
so
our
much.
backs and prevent the children from, you know, having access to all these substances.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ubong, for your submission. Also, thank you so much, Mr. David Olushola Adeson, for your, you know, submission on the matter. We really
Thank you so
appreciate your
much,
submission,
Mr.
gentlemen.
George.
All right, that's the much we'll be sharing with you from our Lagos Network studios. Before we go, just so that you are able to take something home, for parents, look out for early warning signs, and this should be within the ambit of the environment where your children stay. Their body odor, their appearance, the look on their eyes, these are signs you need to look out for. These are the message we have for you from our Lagos Network studio. Many thanks for watching.